There we go. Got it. And then I'll hit the record here as soon as it's showing up live. Very cool. Okay. There we go. Nope, now I'm going to hear myself twice. All right. I'm going to hit record and then we'll go. Kind of a little different. I didn't have a ton of questions, but what I wanted to do was kind of talk about kind of some bigger picture stuff with training and ideas for the next year. So I'll kind of go through there. But I'm going to hit record now. There it goes. So with that said, just hello everybody that's watching us live or out there after the fact. This is our weekly aquatics conversation where we talk about just all things aquatics. You can head over to aquaticstalk.com and find the links to sign up to get a weekly bump into your email about what we've got going on, or just check out past views of what we've done. So there is a user submitted question that I want to answer first, but then I kind of want to talk a little bit more about training and kind of where we could potentially take this going into this next year. We're a couple weeks into the year and see what kind of opportunities are out there. So with that, the anonymous question was, what do you charge for swim lessons, junior lifeguard programs, and lifeguarding classes?
I think that's definitely more of a where you're located that plays into it. But currently, I'm at this facility. We don't charge anything for our lifeguards. If they, we don't do like public open enrollment for the lifeguard classes. If they're going to be in a lifeguard class, they are working for us. So we don't charge them for that. Swim lessons, though, we're sitting at, just upped it. Where is it? I want to say it's like, oh, here it is. For non-members, we're sitting at $65, but we are a YMCA, so typically our numbers are fairly low to begin with. And then junior guard program, we did at my last facility. That was paid for, and that one I'm trying to remember. I want to say our junior guard program was somewhere in the ballpark of $100. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, we're kind of a similar model. I think our lesson program, it runs depending on if they live within the city limits of our tax base. I think we're pushing about $60 a session, and then if they're outside, it's an additional, I think, 5 or 10% more. Junior lifeguard program follows a similar pricing. They get a little more time, but it's bigger class ratios, so we keep the price about the same. And then we are currently not charging for lifeguarding classes. For public sign-up classes, somebody can walk in, take a lifeguarding class, and we get some hires and we get some people that go other places, but we just try to keep it accessible and available. And I think in the long term, it does pay off. Our organization has said that they value putting more people out there that are trained in first aid, CPR, and everything else. So, and it also helps us be able to get full classes and to be able to, how do I want to say it? Expose people into our culture to be able to see what's going on. So, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I'm not hooked to a program currently, but I think that in answering this person's question, maybe some things that, depending on what if it's just a curiosity thing or if it's something that they're trying to develop this program or lay pricing on it as a new person. But obviously you have to look at what your costs are and decide what you want to make for that to set the pricing and however many people are in class. Then classes range, a half an hour, whatever people are doing. I think that the lifeguarding, we were here 20 years ago, to be honest with you, where we were actually almost paying people to come and take lifeguarding. And sometimes we'd have classes of 20, like you were talking, Joe, and we might end up with 5. But we just kind of kept doing that and building the staff. And I had seen classes that were charging like 250, 285. And basically you're talking about a teenager that doesn't have a job. And you have to look at what your competition is. At Taco Time, they do not have to pay for a certification to go to work, or at Kentucky Fried, or at Walmart now, which is going up to $17, $18 an hour. So you have to be competitive with your pricing. And I think that's the stickler for most people, is to figure out, what is more important to you? Is it to have staff, or is it to bring that in as a revenue source?
Yeah.
And you can, as directors, sometimes if we teach the class, then we can not save money, but we're not paying part-time to teach the class.
Right.
You know what I mean? Part-time staff. So it changes your costs a bit.
That's one I've struggled with over time, of like, working in both small and large facilities, of, well, I can just get it. I need to just get it done. And it doesn't, my time is already sunk and expensed, but I think it's important for us to keep track of also that opportunity cost of, like, if I'm spending 30 hours teaching a class, I'm not going to be able to be working on other revenue generating programs, but I can't work on other generating programs if I don't have lifeguards. and that's the quandary that you run into with that. And
I think you have to look in your, like you were saying, in your geographic area, call up the other pools in your area, find out what they're charging.
Right.
You have to be competitive with your competitors. You have to, that's, what people are judging, what they're paying for it.
Right.
Generally, it's people want to do something within 3 miles of either where they work or where they live. Any kind of recreation. That's pretty much what the standard is. And so,
unless you're in Wyoming, and then it's a minimum 30 miles, but
well, that's true. But you don't think about it.
We have,
Rich.
I take it that most of you guys are YMCA's then?
No,
I
Parks and
am.
Recreation.
But mostly, actually, I'm the only Y guy, I think. So
Chelsea's who's not here
just find
today. Why?
Yeah, I just find it hard to believe that you guys are charging like nothing for lifeguarding classes. Like, I can understand if you were doing it for somebody who was like a potential staff person or something, but for the outside people, you don't charge anything here, Joe?
Nope. Where it's a commitment that the city basically said is, we need to run these classes for staff and for potential hires, and we have capacity in the classes to run it, and we're trying to make as few barriers as possible to keep our doors open. And I think it's kind of the I hate to say it, but it's kind of the give somebody a sample of what they'd be looking at and working with, and get them hooked without a commitment to work.
We charge like $30 for swim lessons. That's 3 days a week for 6 weeks. We're an outdoor facility at a lake, and then we just had to raise the junior lifeguarding up to like $60. That's the same thing. It's 2 days a week, but it's longer hours for 6 weeks. And then for lifeguarding classes, we charge $325, and we're filling them.
That's great.
I mean, other places, and we're cheap. Believe it or not, other places are charging $425. In the closer you get to New York City, the more expensive it is, like $400 and stuff like this. And most of the time they're filling the classes. But obviously lately we have not been filling the classes. But the thing is that we have to pay for pool time. That's the killer.
Right.
It's the pool that we have to pay, and instructors. So
yep.
One of the questions that came up too, I mean, I can see that you don't charge for lifeguarding things. We have, it's kind of like a catch-22. You offer somebody a free lifeguarding class if they work for you. All right. And then what's to say that they don't just up and take off? So we advocate that if you're going to do that, that they pay up front and then you reimburse them after they've worked X amount of hours or X amount of months or something like that, or, or if they finish the season or something like that, so it's like you don't lose your investment. Because we have had people, just up and leave or whatever, and you can't, and there's nothing legally that you can do about it,
Right.
So, but on the other hand, too, the other thing is that, okay, what education do you have to get your job? Did you have to have a high school diploma?
Yep.
Did you have to have a college degree? Who paid for that?
Exactly.
Okay, so it's the same thing here. If you need a certification, you should have to pay for that certification up front. Once you're on the job, then we pay for all their recertifications.
Right.
So if they work for us, we will recertify them every single year. We recert every year. We don't wait for 2 years. We recert our people every year in CPR, lifeguarding, waterfront, everything, soup to nuts. Every single year we recert. And as long as they work for us, we pay for that.
Yeah.
That's our philosophy here.
Yeah. I know we're, totally buy into that. I think where we run into a little bit of issue out here is with the public agencies, it's like this weird, like somebody's got to go first of raising rate, like raising pay or adjusting pay scales. It's like, and the HRs will sometimes, I be careful about saying this, but I feel like sometimes HRs drive the organization, and there's kind of an attitude that we all work for HR versus working for the public. Again, there's great people in every HR department I've worked at, but there's kind of some management structures where it's like, well, HR will never let us do this. Well, let's flip what's the desire, what's the goal of the organization? Is the goal of the organization to work for HR? Is it to serve the public? But we're paying minimum wage or just above. We're finally getting some traction on getting that adjusted. So, like Christine was saying, the competition is saying they're bumping, private sector's bumping wages and paying to train. And, they don't have to invest 30 hours into a lifeguarding class to get them in the door to make peanuts. That's a problem we've struggled with out here. We're finally starting to see some movement on that, but it's taken too long. So totally get what you're saying though. Have you guys ever experienced with those paid, once they're hired on, do they get like a lower training rate? And then once they're able to fully like pick up shifts and run on their own, they get paid at the full rate? Obviously above minimum wage.
We do.
We have
like
a STEM program for all of our staff, and so there's the initial hire rate, and then there's a 6-month review, or excuse me, a 30-day review, because there's some initial because we're a Y, they have to go through the child abuse training, they have to go through a couple of other online trainings that the Y USA we work with them on that. So after that 30 days, those initial steps are covered. There's a slight pay bump, and then there's a more significant pay bump after 6 months because right now we did a study, and we looked at all of our for the last year, and like the average hourly was lasting 3 months. And we were going through I can't remember the number they threw out. It was something like 350 employees in a year, and we are fully staffed at like 250, 275. So that's the turnover that's happening at the hourly position. So we have that significant bump at 6 months. So they make it to 6 months. We try to hey, this is a reward. And then there's steps every year after that.
Yeah, what we're kind of looking at, since we've done if any of our staff are watching this, which I don't think any of them do, there's a adjustment rolling out. It's not a raise, it's a pay scales on our city step. And but what we're looking at is uncertified new hire comes in at a lower step than that, or lower that's closer to minimum wage. And then that, once they do the training, they've done all their shadowing, they're ready to pick up shifts, then we bump them into the full freight lifeguard group. So that's something we're exploring. So at least they're getting paid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I will say that, this keeping track of the steps, who's where and what they're doing. But we have seen a positive, as long as you stay on it. Like if you say, hey, here's the step program. The problem was that some other directors and some other staff and prior aquatics directors didn't keep up on it. And so it frustrated the staff because they knew that they were supposed to be moving up in the steps and they weren't. So that's my only thing, is if you're going to entertain a step program, you really need to be diligent with, especially bigger facilities. I'm not a big facility, but keeping track of 40 staff between swim instructors and lifeguards and fitness instructors, it can be quite a thing to keep track of.
Yep. All right. Great stuff there. Really, really think it's good. And I think, we've talked a lot about, this training and recruitment at that staff level. If y'all think it's a broader discussion that I think is an issue, we're seeing at our applicants for our, entry level full-time positions that we're not getting the same kind of applicants we were getting, 5 and 10 years ago. We're getting there. They are not as deep in skills. They are not having the same kind of experience. When you're getting a full-time coordinator position, the applicants may never have had that a full-time position before. So how do we, what's causing that, and where's that, I don't know if you guys have noticed that or have any thoughts on what's causing that.
Well, not to be the person always talking, but I'm doing that right now. I'm going through the coordinator's process, trying to find a coordinator. I got 6 applications and not a single one has any aquatic background. So it's a bit of a struggle to hire somebody that has 0 experience with aquatics. They may have customer service or retail or whatever, but it's hard for me to pull the trigger on somebody that doesn't, because aquatics is just it's so different. So, but yeah, it's a struggle, and I don't know and I have noticed that the skills that has been lacking in general, but I don't have an answer as to what that is. The best way I can describe it is it's just a social economic thing, and that the way wages are at other facilities and other places all across the country is that oftentimes aquatics, for whatever reason, or rec in general, recreation, we oftentimes get the leftovers, is how I describe it. And so we're not getting those super well skilled based people.
Well, and I think again that, it goes to, especially if you're asking for certifications in those jobs, I mean, I remember we were hiring for supervisors, and I had to work with my director to, they were locked and loaded just on somebody having a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. That's what they were locked and loaded on. And the people that I had that had 0 aquatic experience. Right. 0 certifications. And it was like, well, what do you want to have at the pool? What do we really need at the pool or the pools, is to, we've got people that are well qualified who've spent time in this and have those certifications and are ready to roll, or we've got someone that's got the degree but has no background, so we're starting at ground zero. And it doesn't mean somebody can't, you know what I mean? It's not rocket science, they just have to go through the certifications. But I think that's where you get in a quandary is, what is it you need and what is it you can get? And I think you're right on the socioeconomic part of it, is that you're going to attract to those positions what you're paying.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we just did a recruitment and we promoted it, for a full-time lifeguard program coordinator. Full-time, I think, out here wages are right at, really it's almost a single income could do at wage with full benefits. And, the aquatics applicants we got, and maybe that's because some of the people know that there's been some uncertainty at our facility. But we didn't, I think we had 2 candidates that had LGIs. There were lifeguard instructors applying for positions, out of like 20 applicants for a full-time career level lifeguard, job that's supposed to run lifeguards. It's like, you would think they would have had that, we'd get more people that were having those certifications and actual practical experience with it, but that wasn't the case. And that's where we had to do a lot of soul searching about like, well, what are we looking for? What do we need this position? What kind of personality do we need to run this with our team that we have? And, the eventual candidate had aquatics background in other areas of aquatics, kind of had shifted out and back into it. It's been a great fit, I think. But it's been interesting to see. It just doesn't seem like we're as dense, or we're not getting as deep of applicant pools as we used to. And I don't know if it's just because, COVID set everything back, and people are less likely to move, and we're just not, I speculate that part of it may have come from ramifications of, Affordable Care Act impacting people's abilities to have those feeder staff come through, without getting into the politics of that. We're all bound to, all of a sudden we can't work staff as much, so they don't really get into that full-time position that's, transitioning into those more career level positions. So
I think that's spot on.
So, because I think, Kyle and I are about the same age, and I'm going to guess we were probably kind of in that last cohort of people that were working, that were able to work full time before benefits have to be offered. And it was right around that transitioning point where you saw it, where people had to start piecing things together, and then they'd have to get multiple jobs to be able to make ends meet, even though they were able to, have insurance. They already had insurance, or that wasn't something pushing. So, how do we, oh, the camera followed me that time.
That definitely happened for us, is that, I lost what we called a programmer, which was like lead guard. I lost 11 lead guards when that came through. Mm-hmm. And here we'd spent all this time bringing them up from lifeguards and getting those positions. And then it was like, hey, I don't want to work 3 different jobs. I'm going to go get a full-time job.
Right.
And it's like, God, we had to start all over again. It was hard. It was really hard.
Any other thoughts on all that stuff? So, kind of a topic I wanted to jump into. I think this is a good group. What kind of stuff can we do with outreach and programs like this to maybe help some of those issues, to help build community, to help build channels and trainings? The Q&A is great. It's a great talking, jumping off point to be able to just get people to have discussions and to be able to kind of, extrapolate out and really, share ideas. I have no problem doing it, and I love doing it. It's kind of a fun model. But going into this next year, I'm going to be really curious to see, how what kind of trainings, or is it going to make sense to do some more guided discussions? I think just a couple quick hits that I'll kind of lay out there and then open things up a little bit more. I'd like to try to get a couple people to focus on some deep dives. I'd like to get, and maybe, I'll lean on some of you guys like Christine, let's get a couple people that are water fitness experts, and let's really try to push out some deep water fitness discussions. Rich, you've got waterfronts. As we get closer to summer, we're still a little ways out. You got to find that sweet spot before summer gets crazy for waterfronts. But while people are still able to start kind of thinking about it and checking in to be able to get a waterfront, people that have experience running waterfronts, and get those people talking about what's going on. So I think that's one. And then I really think I think our traveling budgets are going to be invulnerable, even though COVID restrictions have lifted. And I don't know that the idea of some of these online hybrid trainings where they put up a camera in the back of the room at a conference is going to be very effective. I don't know if you guys have ever attended any of those, like option. Did I die?
Because you broke up. You were thinking.
Okay. Which is part of the problems that we have to deal with and navigate. But, those online conferences, you become a second-class citizen. And there's not as much value in it unless you're just trying to check the box to get CEUs.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of get some thoughts from y'all and some things that might be helpful or beneficial to see, where are areas that would be good ideas to expand and to really help serve our industry as a whole. And I'm not looking for people to volunteer at this point. I'm looking for people to just say, let's get some ideas out and I'll start working on.
So something that I started working on in Kansas, I was actually going to be speaking at the Kansas Recreation and Parks Association conference before I got this position and had to opt out. But something that I'm seeing a lack of and a struggle with is honestly the program staff, middle management kind of levels where people are just getting burned out, and people don't understand how to, and this is the title of how to manage middle management. So I think that would be a great thing, is like how do we prepare our next generation that are maybe just out of college, in college, looking to go into the full-time world, whether it's aquatics or not. A lot of times those positions that those people are getting are going to be middle management type stuff. And what are the things that you can expect to see? You're getting pressure from both sides. You got pressure from underneath you. The staff are wanting this, that, and the other, and you got pressure from overhead that your superiors saying you got to meet these requirements or do these things. And it's hard to manage those two oftentimes conflicting thoughts. And how do you do that? So anyway, that's my spiel. I think that's something that is unfortunate that I think back in the day, there was a lot more preparation and training for taking on supervisorial positions. Now it's more of a show me a piece of paper with your degree and, oh, you're qualified, let's get you into that position. And they just completely fizzle out because they didn't realize the scope that it was involved.
So are you looking for something like a weekly topic?
Maybe that might be a way to get some people tools and things that they're looking for. Might be good. I just kind of, we're So I started this July 1st, and we've missed 1 week. And there's been a lot of value and a lot of people coming in and out. And so I just want to make sure that we're not just trying to do the same thing. We're trying to make sure obviously there's a good formula here, but how can we better serve? Is that going deep dive on topics? And is there topics that you think would be good?
USLA, I belong to them, to the New England chapter, even though I'm in Jersey, Mid-Atlantic, but I'm one
Right.
of you. But anyway, they have quarterly, like every 2 or 3 months, I think they have, and the things like pretty much like yours. But they have an agenda, what's to be discussed and everything like this. And then the last time they had, which I thought was very good, they had a guest speaker from Galveston, Texas, right, on their beach patrol program, had to do with critical incident stress, and then there was another one on wave watchers, and so that was pretty good. And then at the end we had our Q&A on anything. So I mean, something similar to what we're doing now. So that might be good, is like if you had like maybe one topic, and then the first half hour or 20 minutes a topic, with some Q&A with that guest speaker, and then the regular Q&A that we do.
Great.
I think that, because I don't think you want to lose that Q&A.
No, and just so you guys know, I stole this model from something else that's out there that's in the tech industry. And it's there's a thing, you can check it out and you'll see like, oh yeah, that's what Joe stole from. It's called officehours.global, and it's all just tech and video production stuff. And you'll be like, oh yeah, I see that. And that's the format they do. They do an hour. Their first hour is general Q&A, and then they go deep dive with a guest speaker or a topic. I don't know that 2 hours is going to be doable and attainable, but I think, getting a couple guests to go deep dive, a couple experts, and then the general Q&A, and invite them to stick around and chime in on it. So go ahead.
The things that has to happen, I think, because I think Kyle, when you were saying that middle management, I do think they're the ones that get left out. I don't think that they are getting the training that they need to do the job. But the other thing is that they've got to know about this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a water fitness instructor, Facebook page,
Mm-hmm.
and it's getting to them and getting them invited to this somehow, getting that information out to them so that they can participate. And I came into this late in the game, so I'm not sure what you did previous to that, but I think that's one key, is to figure out how we can encourage aquatic directors to invite their management staff to come on to something like this, and say, hey, we want to help you guys out as directors, and this information is going to be available. And you have some key people that you could have watch the tape. They may not, you'll get the standard, oh, well, they're scheduled at that time, there's no way they can do it. Well, okay, it's taped. They can get the recording at a time they can watch it. In my side gig business that I'm in, I've done 2 national conferences that I've not gone to, and they've been online watching, and it was at a decreased fee to do it. But, if you're going to do a bigger training like that, there are some options out there, and it opens that door for people to come on and watch and see what they can. But I think that's, it's figuring out how to get to those people that really need it.
Yeah.
And, making it available to them.
I really do like the idea of doing the guest speakers, and I think that might help create some buzz on some of it for them. And then I like I see there's a ton of value in conferences, but I'm worried that the conference industry is going to deteriorate. I think with budgets, I think with whatever the next global pandemic or whatever, regardless of views about it, I think you're going to see more and more restrictions. Or
Well, and
I
it's
saw I froze.
expensive. Yeah, it's really expensive.
Did I freeze?
Yeah, you're frozen.
I'm looking for your movement. Oh, yep, there I go. Okay. This is the types of stuff that
Froze again.
He's really struggling today.
Yeah.
going.
There we go.
There you are.
Today's bad.
Yeah.
These are the types of things also why I didn't do a wide net on this to push it to start, was because I want to.
Frozen.
Good word.
That's the worst. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Let's see if this will be a little more stable. Plan B. There it goes. Okay. I see you guys now. Plan B is start in the summer so we can figure out some of the process. And if there's any technical glitches, we don't have 500 people show up and like that's a hot mess. You know
what? Even Tony Robbins has hot messes, okay? With in their online stuff. I think that just kind of happens. People are getting used to it. And you're frozen again. Poor Joe.
Yeah.
I know it's. Let's see. I'm gonna try something here because Kyle, you tend to have a pretty consistent. I'm gonna make you a co-host, so that way it doesn't just completely die. Okay. Now I see you moving. Okay. But yeah, no, I know there's technical issues and everything else, and that's why we're trying to like really. I want to get the reps in. It's just down. I know what I think. I think I know what the problem is. Down the street on my way to school today, take my oldest to school, there was a communication line down. And even though it's not necessarily what we feed off of, it's probably causing disruptions on everything. So, I don't know what came across, but I think, just long term, I think we want to try to be thinking and pivoting to make sure we can still have good trainings available and the ability to network and the ability to actually have things come together smoothly.
That's one thing I've noticed on the Water Fitness Facebook is that those are line staff. That's who's asking questions. That's who's commenting. That's who's seeking information. I think that's where people can learn along with what they're learning on the job.
Yeah.
But when you start putting trainings together, I did that for a really long time, and it's expensive. It is a lot of work. You have to be a year ahead of yourself. I mean, there's a lot going on, and we have organizations already doing that. So you don't want to recreate that wheel.
Right.
In our state, we have an aquatic section, part of the Park and Recreation departments. And I don't know what you have with the Y, Kyle, but and Rich, you were saying that you already are part of a organization that, you plug into on a regular basis. And so it's, I don't like to recreate the wheel because it isn't gonna make it happen.
Right.
Texas has I guess they have a Park and Recreations association in Texas, and they do, I think, weekly or monthly.
Oh yes, they're very good. I've been on those. They're very good.
when they first started it, I went on some of them and they were pretty good. And some of the stuff didn't pertain to me, but at least ahead of time, what they're going to be talking about.
And honestly, so when I was in Kansas, I got involved with that group and during the COVID and everything. Very good, very well put together. They brought some great resources. I think it's Northern Texas Aquatic something. I'd have to look up the Facebook page, but they had some great stuff because of Kansas being a little further north. They were about a month or two ahead of me, and they were kind of basically working out all the kinks before it got to me.
Right.
And so it was very handy to have that resource. So yeah, anyway, so there are a lot of these types of things out there. However, I would argue that having multiple options is not necessarily a bad thing. To where if people can't make one, they can make another. And also, honestly,
still frozen.
No, you're good. Well, maybe
You were.
The other thing to consider is everybody has their niche. Texas talks a lot about more year-round outdoor facilities and beach stuff, whereas I'm in an area that I'm going to be talking about more indoor related issues at my current facility. So I don't think it's a bad thing to try. We're not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but maybe get some other viewpoints is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. I think the goal is to break down barriers. My goal is to break down barriers. As somebody who's worked in, tiny corners and remote areas, the ability to do things like this and bring people. And I mean, I think about like Chelsea, who's joined this call, like she's working by herself in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and the tiny Y calling in from a closet. But literally just getting involved and being able to actually connect and grow a network of resources. And being the person that was calling in from a closet before, in Toledo, Oregon, I think there's value.
Well, I think I want to clarify, because when I was saying recreate the wheel, I meant holding trainings in places where people have to travel to it.
Okay.
I think this format is wonderful, and I think that's where this can be enhanced if we can open the door to more people, because you can plug into it when it works for your schedule.
Right.
And so if you're truly interested, you can make that happen for yourself. And but what you were saying in terms of the days gone by conference type setups, I think it's definitely changing. The landscape's changing on that for sure.
I mean, my dream would be to be able to get, some of these national speakers, and be able to, I think if they're coming in, and then what we can do is have, there's, in central, or the central Willamette Valley here in Oregon, there's a meetup and watch party. And then in Wyoming, you have one, and in New Jersey, you have one where it's not just a kind of a second class experience for everyone. They're talking to the group, and then they're getting the questions fed to them. And then you can still have those networking aspects of, actually face to face and grabbing lunch with people and things like that, where it doesn't necessarily have to be this, I have to fly everybody to Texas to go to, or Colorado to go to the Association of Aquatics Professionals. I just have to drive an hour and a half to, the YMCA where Kyle's at, and then we go grab pizza afterwards.
Right. And I think that is a crucial part, is as much as I get a lot from the online stuff, and partially why, because it helps rejuvenate me to be a part of these things, but the in-person, like just the lunch, going to grab lunch, just talking about whatever comes to mind, that That stuff is awesome. So I agree the conferences are kind of hard, but if we do like viewing parties type deal where we get like this area, hey, this is happening, you can come use our facility. I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
That way you're still getting that personal,
Yeah,
but it's not as far.
Right.
I think that networking is extremely helpful. I mean, and valuable. I mean, I've been a speaker at the AOAP conferences in the past. This year, I'm not eligible to go this year. But networking afterwards is great. I mean, I get so many contacts, and what happens is we're sharing ideas and programs back and forth. Okay, when I get back to Jersey, let me send this to you, and then somebody gets back to Florida or something like this, and I was dealing with somebody. I guess we set up a copycat organization like Florida did, and it's growing pains, but it's working very well. I said, my God, we never thought of this, and this is a great idea. So I think that the in-person networking is great. I mean, this is great. I mean, I had a very difficult time. I was supposed to be one of the speakers at the AOP, and then they went. That was the year that they went online. They did it. I had to have subtitles underneath my presentation because they couldn't understand Jersey. So it was down in Texas. so yeah, I almost had to resort to hand puppets for a while because the video went out or the audio. So, but yeah, I think the in-person is great. I mean, I am looking forward to the AOE conference this year in Colorado. I'm not going, but I'm going to be, involved in being on the online things and stuff like that. So, but I will miss doing some of the networking and stuff. So, you have a guy named Fry out there in Oregon.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's actually not a bad guest speaker. I mean, if you have him for like that peer group, the peer program, that might be something to start off the next thing for a weekly thing. I mean, I'm sure he's busy because he's the chairman of the AOAP conference committee, I think, but he'd be busy. But maybe right after that, you might want to.
Yeah, I got him on speed dial.
I mean, there you go. I mean, he was a great resource for me, and he's reached out to me, after the first conference we talked to, and I felt bad that because that's when they changed the conference from, I think, April to February, and I was coaching at the time, and I told him, I said, that is my championship season. I said,
right.
I can't leave, I can't do it, But he wanted to collaborate with me on a program when it was down in Florida, and I said, I'll give you what I have, documents and stuff like this, but I just couldn't help him present it.
Yeah, he's got to work one of his retirement jobs at this time is why he doesn't jump on with us.
Did he retire?
He retired from River Road, but he's still working at the University of Oregon.
Okay.
So he's a part-time pool operator.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I collaborate with him on stuff regularly.
Good.
So he still stays involved with our Oregon group, but it's like our Oregon group, they're going to try to meet quarterly now in person. So I'm going to be curious to see how that pencils out. Because I think we're still facing these staffing shortages, so it's still hard to get away. But I think quarterly might work. So we'll just have to see. But that's what I think. I don't want to take away from the conferences, but I just feel like in a couple of years they're going to be really struggling. And I think I want to have the infrastructure and be able to poke through is kind of my own personal goal to kind of figure out how to work around those slowly building up over time.
And how many of you send your part-time middle management staff to conferences?
Sorry, what was that?
How many of you send your middle management people, usually part-time, to conferences?
Not part-time, but like my coordinator I'd send, that's full-time, but I mean, but my facility, I am middle management. even though, I mean, that's the program director is a middle management position. So I only got one full-time underneath me, and then the rest is part-time, but we don't spend the money on the part-timers, just because of the turnover being the way it is. So if we have a full-time staff that's interested in training and they present that, fortunately our facility is pretty good about that, but not part-time.
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to bring my my assistant, who's almost I almost consider him a peer, but I brought him probably to the last 3 conferences and stuff like that. So he's gotten a lot of stuff out of it.
Yeah.
The good part about it is, one of the things I have the problem with the AOP is that they have so many great seminars and they're all at the same time. So I tell them, okay, you go to this one, I'll go to this one, and then when we get back to our room in the afternoon before dinner, we'll compare notes, and say, okay, this was good, this is good, this not pertains to us or whatever, and so it's nice to like be able to divide like that and cover as many seminars as possible.
Well, that's where I kind of wonder, there's nothing stopping. Let's say we get Jeff Fryer to do a presentation. Let's say, we find something we want him to talk about for 20 or 30 minutes. We don't necessarily have to have him actually do that live. We can take that 15, 20 minutes, have that, work on getting it dialed in on recording, and then we kind of watch it, and then we come on and do Q&A. And talk about it as a group with him. Things like that, I think might, reduce barriers and try to keep it smoother where we're not, and then it also makes it accessible to other people easier.
Well, that's what we did with the AOP. We had to film it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the introduction was live. The other thing was taped, and then at the end with the Q&A, we went back live. That might be a good format.
Do you guys? So basically, every conference we've gone to, at least as long as I can remember, it's whether it's 90 minutes or 75 minutes, it's 50 minutes of the person talking, and then like 10 minutes of Q&A. I kind of almost feel like we need to flip that model.
Yep.
Where, the person comes, they hit their high points, they talk about, really force that distilling it down. And then people are starting to ask, how does that apply in this situation? Or how do you make that work in this situation? And I think that might provide more value. Now, managing that takes some time and effort, and it's going to be a whole different process. But I almost wonder if that might be a better way to start attacking some of this.
I think that you have to have enough time for the Q&A afterwards. I mean, because there's so much, you feel rushed. What happens is, you do your presentation, and then what happens is you go for Q&A, and there's so many questions that are going to be asked, and then you have to leave, set up for the next room or something like that. So I think that there should be at least, like, if you have an hour, I think that 40 minutes of a presentation, then you have 20 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be like two-thirds.
30.
2/3 and 1/3.
Mm-hmm.
At least leave at least 20 minutes for Q&A.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is, even if people don't have questions, what's going to happen is that someone's going to grab you at the end and ask you an individual question or something like that. And what I started doing is that I hand out index cards, and I said, listen, if you may have a question later on, I said, just write down the question. If it's not answered, or if you don't have time, you have to go to another class or something like this, just write down the question, leave the card with your name, your contact information. I'll get back to you, either by email or call the guy up. So. And
I think in small settings, with virtual, we can literally just chime in, right? We can have people just chime in, raise their hand, ask the question. I think as you get bigger, and let's say you're doing distributed, that's where text-based questions are really nice. because then you can have somebody that's kind of screening those and being able to kind of look through and help feed those to the speaker to help the conversation work well. So, well, I'd love any other ideas. I really want to stay relevant, and I really want to try to make, try to serve out the industry and grow. Like, I feel like we're, with the big conferences, I think they're really good, but I think we're missing some gaps. There was some momentum and things that started during COVID of building networking and doing things like this, but we were kind of taking the model we had and we shifted it into something that was, instead of being in person, it was over computer. And I think it needs to evolve a little bit to stay relevant. So it's not just, me droning on for a PowerPoint for 45 minutes, because I don't think there's much value. There is some value in that, but I think the back and forth in a structured way is a lot more valuable. So if you guys have any other thoughts, please let me know as you stew on this, because I'd like to kind of take a bigger approach and just try some more things here going into 2023, and especially as I get this internet issue figured out.
Well, I think that the key is to try it. You've got some ideas and you could try them, and it's an evolving thing.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be set in stone. It's something that can change and morph, and you see what the participation is. It could, some of it can even be just the time frame, I think that you're onto something. I think you just give it a try, and
just keep
here we go.
Tweaking the dials.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Bringing together, though. I mean, that's so important, and having each other to support each other has been relevant to aquatics forever, because generally you don't have somebody above you that has the expertise teaching you. So we have to teach each other. And that's really where it's been for a long time.
I am more and more convinced I do not want a boss above me. I don't want to work for an aquatics person anymore. I don't. I'm much more. I want a good administrator and let them leave me to the aquatic stuff. And if I can't explain it coherently and in a way that they can do research and defend it or check on it, because I've just ran into so many people that are stuck in their ways with things, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. It's like, no, it does. Here's why, and here's the other support from other places. But that's just me. So, any other closing thoughts?
No, but just if you talk to Jeff, tell him I said hello, and
I will text him as soon as we get off this and tell him that you jumped on, and so where's Jeff? No. I will say this, and Jeff knows this, and I've said this with him before. The nice thing about doing Zoom meetings with Jeff is I can hit the mute button on him. No, that's said with a lot of love and respect for the guy. But he even joked about going on at our last Oregon meeting. So, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap it. We're at the top of the hour, and next week will probably be a little more of a traditional format, but I'm going to be poking around in some of the groups to try to start floating some of these ideas out. So thank all of you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
okay, thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody.
Catch you all soon.
Yeah.